Hello, welcome back to CPR. I'm your host, Harold Boyd, and we're with Doug Davidson, a professor of sociology at Western Michigan University. And Doug, we left off, what I heard you saying is that the best thing that we could do is to really focus on our education system and to teach people better about the history and about rights and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm, you know,
Is that right?
concerned.
Did I hear you right?
Because I'm concerned oftentimes with what I see as a kind of really low-level understanding.
Right.
I work with students all the time, and I've worked with community folk. It's a kind of low-level understanding of that history that involves sort of black-white relations and stuff.
Mhm.
Okay, and people have, it seems to me, some kind of vague understandings of it.
Mhm.
But I think that the popular political narrative that has maybe dominated so much of education for a long time is this business of biological inferiority, intellectual inferiority, and that being manifested in dysfunctional families and dysfunctional communities, and too much crime, too many broken homes, and all of that. Okay, but I think that connects with this business of people not, being fully prepared to function as independent actors in a liberal democratic society and stuff, okay, where under a capitalist system you're sort of responsible to take care of yourself and your family. And if you can't do that, then you are judged rather critically, all right, as a person who is inadequate on some level. And if you're from a community where your community has been portrayed as one that has a disproportionate number of people who are not capable of living up to the in quote U.S. norm, then the business of blaming those folk for lack of ability, okay, for lack of proper work habits and all of that. I mean, this notion that people are lazy and they don't respect education and they don't respect family and all that. See, that's the narrative that tends to dominate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what we're constantly working against in some ways is trying to modify that narrative to kind of present a counter argument to it. Okay.
Right.
And people, looking at if I'm doing the teaching, for example, because they're going to look at me kind of skeptically, right? And then many of them, of course, will take the fact that, okay, well, look at you, you made it. You see, so that must be that it can be done. So those other people that didn't make it or who are not exhibiting,
They're flawed.
yeah, they're flawed. Okay?
Yeah.
So anyway,
yeah. I mean, I hear you, and I think it's like with the Parkland thing. The school in Florida, and today, which is Pi Day, by the way, 3.14.
Yeah.
I taught math too.
Okay.
PI.
Right.
Yeah, that Pi Day. Anyway, but and it's really heartening to see the students getting involved, making a difference. But I think these were middle-class white kids, that happened to primarily, in this very wealthy area of school. And people pay attention to them. But, I looked at it like Eric Gardner in particular. That was very painful to me, to see him being choked to death. And part of it really, maybe you can relate to this, but I was a big guy. I was the biggest guy in school. And, I think as a result, I tended to be, like that gentle giant thing. That's why I looked at Eric Gardner. Okay. And the guy who choked him was a little guy. And I had to face that, that resentment. So I don't know. That may have nothing to do with anything. But the point is, where was the outpouring of like with this Parkland thing, where was all the demonstrations about that? And then when Colin Kaepernick puts a knee, which is a sacred thing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And it's not about the military. It's about the police. Shooting unarmed you know, and they also shoot unarmed white people too, but many more, you know, and where's the outpouring in that? And so I look at that as an expression of the racism in the culture in general, a big part of it. I mean, and I think it's a good thing what the students are doing. I think it's good. I'm not disparaging that at all. I really welcome that, but I just wonder where is the other. Do you agree with that, or?
Yeah, I think we had spoken a little earlier about the whole Black Lives Matter movement and the kind of resistance that has emerged around just that label. Okay. That a lot of you know, people in the white community get very upset. No, it should be that all lives matter. Okay. So one would think, okay, if we look at, and I'll go all the way back to the era of lynchings and stuff in the South. Then we come forward to the killing of these young men, where we went through the events of Ferguson, and we had all of these others, okay, one in Florida and all of that. And so the point here is that it would appear, you know, on the basis of how, you know, the larger society, the dominance of the people who make up the dominant population in the country, tend to see, I think, blacks as, black lives maybe, let me put it like this, as maybe not as valuable.
Right.
Okay. And so, and maybe most of the time they seem to be able to rationalize that, you know, if a black person gets lynched, black person get killed by the police, that somehow or other they deserved it. Okay, that it was a legitimate. Okay. Now the thing I think that happens in the school, if we go back to the elementary school in Connecticut, to Columbine, to Park, you know, Park in Florida, those are considered young people who deserved a good life.
Right.
Okay. Right. They are deserving people. Okay. These were young people who were going to be contributing to, you know, maintaining the wealth, the dominance, and the power of the United States. And so they were going to uphold, you know, the country as most people in the country want to project it as being. Right. But, you know, blacks or Latinos are not perceived as people who are going to make those kinds of contributions. So I think their lives and loss of their lives does not have the same significance. Their lives don't have the same value, because they're not a valued people.
And people don't get outraged.
No.
Well, there is some.
Yeah.
But there's not enough. That's the problem.
No.
I mean, you know, like what's happening today, that's massive.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need massive kind of
but you'd have to have that kind of broad-based consciousness about all people in the country being citizens and deserving.
How do we get that?
That's
it's education, I guess, right? It's education.
It's education, but I think it also is bigger than education. We have to think about education as something that doesn't happen just in educational institutions. Right. It happens in churches. It happens in political debate. It happens, you know, in conversations and stuff, informal conversations.
Right.
And so I think, you know, what we need in some ways is a much more broad-based kind of dialogue, and I think there have been folks who've been talking about trying to have these dialogues around race and stuff around the country as a way of trying to build, I think, this sort of sense that we all share a kind of common history, that we share a kind of common destiny, and that common history is not just a white history, it's not just a black history, it is all the people who are within the boundaries of what has become the United States. That's the history we share. And we need to begin to embrace that history in its complexity and understand that there has been good, bad, and ugly, and to be able to talk about that. If we're going to build for a better tomorrow, we have to do it, I think, from a foundation of kind of understanding what that good, bad, and ugly has been historically, and let's try to move in the direction of trying to create, you know, a broader definition and a broader understanding of the good that we wish to create.
Right. Do you agree with former Attorney General Eric Holder, who said that we are basically cowards when it comes to talking about race? Do you remember him saying that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that in some ways he's absolutely correct that
Yeah.
people have problems
Talking
doing it.
about,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. And it
It
makes,
can be
it makes people uncomfortable.
Yeah, for
Yes,
white
yes,
people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to say sometimes.
Sure. I think it invokes a certain kind of anger, but it also invokes sometimes some guilt. It
Yeah,
also, like I said, it's just makes people uncomfortable. And it also, I think, sometimes invokes a little fear.
yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think maybe we have a sense that when it comes to how people of color have been treated, in the United States,
Yeah,
that, I think it would be kind of difficult if I've been on the side that has benefited from that treatment, that I would have some concern that maybe those people over there who've been victimized in some way
yeah.
may be harboring, some revenge instincts and stuff, and that if they get an opportunity, you see what I'm saying, they're gonna want to get even. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I think that makes it even more uncomfortable to kind of talk about,
Right.
because then that says that we have to do everything we can to kind of keep them at arm's length.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and to make sure we keep them under some kind of control,
Right.
so they don't start acting out and acting on this
Yeah.
desire for revenge that
Well, that,
must be there.
yeah, that gets to talking about police,
Mhm.
Incarceration and all that stuff. And, we had a conversation some time ago
Right.
with Chief Hadley,
Right.
Jeff Hadley, and with the Sheriff Rick Fuller. And you talked about, the purpose of police to actually create another slavery, virtual slavery after Reconstruction,
Mhm.
where, black people would be, black men
Mhm.
would be arrested on a pretext, and then they would use them to build the railroads
Well,
and that kind of thing, right?
well, they use them as oftentimes convict workers.
Yeah,
So
like building the railroad, right?
yeah, railroads,
Yeah.
anything else that we do.
Well, that was the big thing in
Yeah,
those days. was-
And as agricultural workers too in the South,
Mhm.
because there was a period when we had the Great Migration, and so a lot of blacks were leaving and coming north
Right.
to hope what they felt was going to be better opportunities and the chance to join the
Well,
official
okay,
industrial
but I'm bringing
complex.
this up because, the past is prologue, right? Or, the past really forms who we are today.
Yeah.
And so we still have those attitudes. I mean, they're a lot less pronounced. Racism is more complex, maybe more nuanced. But, the big thing is about what we call mass incarceration. And, one book, I have two books. One is Chris Matthews' A Colony and a Nation, which is really interesting, that he gets into how, blacks and whites are treated differently by the police. But, this one I think is really interesting. John Pfaff, who's at Fordham University, The True Causes of Mass Incarceration, How to Achieve Real Reform. And, we'll talk about that, but, we talked about this before.
Right.
And, I think, to sum up, the really important thing that he says is the aggressiveness of county prosecutors. So we'll get into that in our last segment, and so we'll be right back.